All right, good morning or afternoon again to those folks on the East Coast, and welcome everyone to our exciting second day of our user symposium. So thank you all so much for taking the time out of your day to join us for training and discussion again. So my name is Brittany Wood and I will be your host today. And joining us today from the WebCheckout team, we have Aj Oetman, Nicole, Mildner, Jeannie Clark, and Eric Dodson. So once again, we have a very exciting day planned for you all. So let's take a look at this agenda to see what we have in store. So this morning, AJ will start us off by reviewing some advanced import essentials. And at 12 o'clock p.m., Nicole Mildner from our technical support team will lead a session discussing how you can help our support team provide better solutions faster. We'll take a break for lunch at 12:30 to 1:30 p.m. And then after lunch, we'll come back for a group activity and break up into those breakout rooms, which we were introduced to yesterday. And then finally, Eric will end us all with some closing remarks. So with that, welcome AJ and take it away.
All right, thank you so much, Brittany. I am Aj Oetman, your account manager and host. As you've noticed from this Grow User Symposium event, we've tried to make it as engaging and interactive as possible. So just to get a pulse of who we have on the call in terms of your level of understanding our imports, how many here on the call currently use our patron integration module? And just by a thumbs up in chat, if you are currently using patron integration, meaning your person data uploads on a script every night and you get an updated record nightly. All right, I'm not right now seeing, okay, I see a couple thumbs up, great. How many of you currently on the call use manual import? So maybe at the start and into the semester, you load a patron file with your patron data on it. Okay, I see a few thumbs up, great, awesome. How many of you currently are using our course integration module? So if you have restricted gear or restricted centers, you're granting access to that via groups. How many are using our course integration module to have that data automatically updated into WebCheckout? Okay, I see also a few thumbs up there. And then my final question is, how many of you were responsible for initially creating your resource data? So your resource types and your resources via imports in WebCheckout. Either were from the beginning or you still are using import files to update that data. Awesome. Okay, I'm seeing a lot of thumbs up come up there. Great. Well, whatever level you're at in terms of importing and however you use that feature, this session is for you. Today, we will review advanced import essentials, and I'll walk us through a standard person advanced import file, something many of you are likely familiar with. We will also review the import data application. Afterwards, we'll go over common errors and how to fix them. This session will focus on the person advanced import file as it is the most significant file that our clients use when setting up integration. However, these principles will apply to all import files, such as your resource files, group files, and all other entities that you can import through the application. To get started, we'll use our WebCheckout documentation page to download a template file that we'll be working from. Right. So I'm going to, again, navigate to our person advanced import documentation page, and I'm even going to pop this into our chat to ensure everyone can navigate to that person advanced import page. And I'm even going to put the password in chat so you can access that page. Now, our documentation page contains full instructions on how to set up your import file and what fields are optional and which ones are required. I'm going to navigate to our first bulleted point, which is to download the Person Advanced Import file. And by clicking on this link, you can download a blank file and then open it. You can open it in any program. You can open it in a text editor or in a program like LibreOffice, Sheets, or Excel. I have currently opened mine in Google Sheets. Now, I'm going to review some of the key fields that are on this file. This file contains two key sections. The first is the Begin Configuration section. This is the section of the file that controls what type of information is being updated. As our advanced import format is additive, information will only be added that you specify. The second section is our Begin Data section, where you'll place the actual data to be uploaded. Let's review some of the fields in the Begin Configuration section to get started. Right under Begin Configuration, we have version, which should always be set to 2. Type denotes what type of file it is. In this case, this is a person file, as it's updating our person records. Origin references how data was created. When creating new records, we recommend setting this to external to indicate the record was created from an import file, an external source. When viewing a record detail, you'll notice the origin field. If the record was created from within the application, origin will list as local. As mentioned, if external, that typically indicates that a record was created via an import file. Next, we have label. Label is an optional field where you can make a note about your import. I'm going to label mine Webco User Symposium Patron Import 2022. Now we'll go into our lookup columns row. The lookup column sets the primary key or constant value that is associated to that record that all other data on the record pivots off of. I recommend using user ID, which is the unique user name or ID recognized when a patron signs into the application. However, if you have user IDs that change when a patron has a name change, you can exchange this value for barcode, external ID, or even define your own unique identifying field with custom properties. So for example, if I do have a user ID that changes frequently, I can move this value over and replace it with barcode in the lookup columns and move user ID into my import columns row. And now the user ID will update and everything will pivot off of the barcode. However, for my purposes, I'm just going to stick to user ID because my user IDs don't change. So I'm going to move that value back. The next row is our import columns row. This lists all of the columns to be updated via import. If there's a column you're not using, I recommend deleting the column altogether. For example, let's imagine that we're not using Street 2. If I'm not using it, I can highlight the column and fully delete the column. In rare cases, some clients will want to retain information on the file, but not have it updated onto the import. For these cases, we've created a non-import columns row. Let's say, for example, that a field like academic level, we want it to be on the file. So we want new information on the file, but we're not ready for it to be updated just yet. We're still gathering that information. In that case, I can move this column header into our non-import columns row. And now that data can be on the file, but it will not import into the application. Next, we have an optional actions row. With advanced import, you are explicitly telling WebCheckout what's being updated, including inactivating records already in WebCheckout. With no action row, the person import file will add new records to update existing records only. If you already have people in WebCheckout whose status should be inactive due to graduation or who are no longer enrolled, and your person file only includes active people, include deactivate excluded in the action field. The import file will now inactivate records in WebCheckout that are omitted from the file, which most institutions prefer this behavior. Unsafe can be used in conjunction with deactivate excluded if the file has no data. This is in the rare event that you want to inactivate all patron data en masse set to this origin. I don't want to do this, so I am going to remove unsafe. If you are deactivating excluded records, you may also include the action verbose to display a list of all deactivated records. This is useful to see a detailed list of who has been deactivated. For my file, I'm only adding people into WebCheckout. So for simplicity's sake, I'm going to delete this action row. Now, let's address some of the key fields in our begin data section. The first field is the user ID. It is a primary identifier and the unique value that users use to log into WebCheckout. And for those of you using the authentication module, this identifies the unique attribute used for your single sign-on. I'm going to add 3 new patrons to import today, and we'll ensure to add the required data for these patrons. I'll add L Skywalker, L Organa, and H Solo. After the user ID, ensure you add a first and last name. As you can guess, these are associated with Luke Skywalker, Leia Organa, and Han Solo. Next, I'm going to add their patron class. As a reminder, patron class is used to vary the policies you enforce. For example, if you have a different max checkout reserve policy for a different class of students, they could have a different policy class to easily vary their policies. At my institution, we have the same policy for all students and a different set of policies for our faculty. These 3 are all students, so I'm going to use our default value, other. All right, and I'll drag it down. Now, as of our March 2022 release, your patron class values are customizable in the global settings detail screen. They can be accessed and edited if you have the root admin capability. And of course, to use our default values, you can always reference that documentation page that I opened with. Right. Now that we've completed these fields, we also need to ensure that we update patron status, which is also a required field. I'm going to scroll over to the status field since we downloaded this right from our documentation page. So I see status there. I'm going to list active in all caps and drag it down. Okay. That completes our required fields on the file. However, there are a few more I recommend including as best practice. I'm going to add barcodes to ensure that these patrons have a second unique identifier and to allow them to scan in a barcode at the time of checkout to ease the circulation process for my operators. All right, so I'm going to add those values. I'm going to add C3PO, R2D2, and Shui. For those who have the messaging module, which allows you to have automatic emails sent, and really for any client, I recommend including an email address to ensure that you can quickly communicate with these patrons. So I'm going to copy and paste in emails under the email column. All right, and then one more email. The rest of this file is largely information, so contact information for your patrons. For my institution, we don't use the rest of these fields heavily, so I am going to delete these column headers. As a reminder, deleting unused column headers is best practice to avoid import errors. So I'm simply going to highlight and delete, highlight and delete, and go through and just remove any unused column headers. Continue deleting these and remove, if I'm not using academic level, remove it. Now we're going to save it and ensure it is saved as a CSV file with UTF-8 encoding. Because I was using Sheets, I can just expand my view, go to File, Download, and download it as a .csv file. All right, great. So I've downloaded that file. Now that we've finished the file, we're ready to import it. This brings us to our second section today, which is reviewing our import data application. To access this application from WebCheckout, you can use the apps menu that's located in the top right-hand corner of your screen, and then go down to import data. I will note that to access this, you will need the import data operator capability, right? From the import data application, there are some helpful options in the navigation bar to assist with importing. The first icon will bring you back to this home screen where you can upload your file. The information icon will open a list of the properties available for import. I'm going to select from the property sheets, person, which is the file we were just working on, where here I can see all of the unique ID properties or what should be in your lookup column, other updatable properties, any required row properties, and finally, any available actions. All right. Next, we can click on our integration times icon, where you can see a list of the files that have been previously uploaded. I can see right away that recently a person file was uploaded on July 12th. Now, before we actually upload this file, I want to ensure that I back up my database. So this fourth icon is our backup database icon. This is best practice to ensure you have a backup prior to any import. I'll hit the backup database button and hit continue. Now, depending on the size of your instance and the amount of data on it, this may take a few seconds or a couple minutes. In my case, I'll just wait till that wheel completes backing up the database to upload my file. All right, now that it's finished, I'll click on my upload icon, and I'm now going to hit add file. I'll add my file and go to where I downloaded it and hit open. All right, the file opens and I see initially that there are no parse errors. I can tell because there's a 0 listed beside the parse errors report. And so now I'm ready to hit validate to run it for any validation errors. All right, and now I see that there is one error. So I'm going to select the one to open the report. And the error says property user ID for new person may not be set to L Skywalker, matches unique ID for Luke Skywalker. This means that we'll need to fix one of the patrons' record. However, the other two lines are fine, so I'm going to go ahead and load the file with those corrected lines. I'll hit promote. Promoting cannot be undone. When you have lines in error, like my one for Luke Skywalker, the import will simply ignore that line, but will load the other records. Let's now go into the application and look for these people. To find them, I'm going to go people, find people. And I'm going to sort by their user ID and just scroll down through my active patrons. All right. And I see Han Solo here. I see Leia, right? All right, and I'm just going to expand this view. All right, and now we're going to look for Luke Skywalker. So I'm actually just going to type him in. Find, and I see Luke Skywalker is here. All right, so now I want to diagnose why we got that error. Typically, this error is created due to origin. That is the most commonly observed reason why I would get an error for matching unique ID. What often will happen is admins will create records in WebCheckout manually using the people new person option. This will create a new record that is a local record. As the file lists its origin as external, WebCheckout thinks we're creating a brand new external record. But this unique ID matches an existing record that is listed as a local origin, and that is a no-no. You cannot have two records with the same unique identifier. So now that I've pulled up his status, I'm just going to add a result column, and I'm going to include the term origin and hit find. And as we can see on the screen, yes, Luke is listed as local. Now, I want to note that for lead admins, we recommend listing your accounts as local. This way, in the event that a person file may not reflect the most up-to-date roster of active patrons, the lead admins can still log in. With admins like that, you can either remove them from the import file, or you can simply push the import file, as lines in error will be skipped when the file loads. However, Luke is a student, and we need to ensure that he's being updated from the import file. So let's go in and fix this manually in WebCheckout to change his origin to external. I can do this by clicking on Luke's name, which will navigate me to his patron detail screen. I'm now going to select his admin tab, and I'm going to manually change his origin to external by selecting the dropdown on origin, hitting external, and then hitting the green check to ensure it saves. The import will now run without error, and the script will update all other fields on Luke's patron detail screen. However, what if you have a lot of origin issues? For example, what if you just purchased our patron integration module and you've been manually adding patrons for years and importing records, so there is a mix of local and external records? Let's go and update origin errors en masse using our import data application. But firstly, let's verify that we have this issue. So I'm going to go back to people, find people. All right, I'm going to remove Luke Skywalker's name because I'm wanting to look for all patrons who are set to the origin local. And I've already included an origin as a search term. I'm going to select local. This will ensure I'm only searching for patrons that are set to the origin of local. I'll hit find, and I see I have quite a few local records. Right now, there are 21 local records. All right. Well, I want to leave my admin set to local as mentioned earlier, but I'm wanting to change this origin to a specific group that I know are my students, so that way my integration script can update them nightly. So I'm going to add another search term, and I'm going to add the search term group and type in my Bell Union group, as this is the group of students that I want to ensure are being updated. And right away, I can see that all of them are listed as local, because in the result column under origin, they're all listed as local, which we need to change. All right. So before exporting this, I just want to note that I have included already that origin as a result column. If you're wanting to change origin, make sure you include that, because when I export this list, it will only export the column headers that I have specified on my find screen. Whereas when we started this session, we looked at all of the column headers available from our documentation page, which is a much broader scope. Okay, I'll hit export as, export importable, and now I'm going to open that file. All right, now I'm going to change my share to full screen to assist my clients that typically edit using Excel. I frequently edit Excel, and that way we can see this view in Excel. So I'm going to change my share. All right, great. And if you can't see my full screen, just hop in and let me know, but you should be looking at this full screen of an Excel document. All right. Great. Now, as you can see right away, as I mentioned, we added that origin column. All of the column headers that we specified are listed here on the file. Okay. Now, we need to firstly change our origin row in the configuration to local. So I'm changing it from external to local. If you remember, this field denotes how data was or is being created. And the files are currently listed as local in WebCheckout. So that the file doesn't think we're duplicating, we want to make sure that we list this as local so it reads what their current status is. Now we're going to change the origin of the file below this origin column, and we're going to change it to external. And I'm going to drag this down. Since the file will now be read as local, what these users are currently set to, and we've changed it to external. Now WebCheckout won't think we're duplicating, it'll know we're wanting to change the origin. With those simple changes, we're now ready to upload, so I'm going to save the file. Since we opened in Excel, I'm also going to need to do a secondary step to save, which we'll see in a minute. So I'm going to go File, Save As. I'm going to rename this my Bell Union Group Import 1 and make sure it's saved as a CSV with UTF-8 encoding. All right. I'm going to close the file. All right. But because we open in Excel, we're going to need to open in a text editor to remove any metadata. Unfortunately, Excel auto adds metadata. These values are intended to assist with creating files. However, they create import errors for many applications such as ours. So I'm going to go back to my downloads folder. I'm just going to right click that file, hit open with Notepad. And now I'm going to hit File, Save As. I will note that while I am opening in Notepad, if you're using a Mac, this program will likely be text edit, but any text editor program will work. I'm also going to ensure that the encoding is just UTF-8, not UTF-8 with BOM. I'll hit save and replace the file. Great, so just that two-step process will remove the metadata. And now I'm ready to upload the file. So I'm going to go back to my import data application and reset the upload. We recently backed up, so I'm not going to repeat that step. Instead, I'm going to load the file. Great, so it ran with 0 parse errors. That's great news. We'll hit validate, 0 validation errors. That's fantastic. And now I'm going to hit promote. All right, and now the file is loaded in the system. We're going to go back into WebCheckout to ensure these changes took place. So I'm going to refresh this window. All right, and as you can see, all of the patrons disappeared because I still have a search term listed as local. Let's see what happens when I change it to external, since that is the origin we changed them to. I now see they are all pulled up and under their origin column are listed as external. So now all of these students that are part of this Bell Union group will be properly updated on my script that runs nightly. Great. We've covered the #1 import error that I see, which is unique ID duplicates due to origin. This is not just for people imports, but for all imports, especially resources, as operators often manually add new resources into WebCheckout without using the import file. So when they go to export resources to update the records in mass with the import file, they will frequently run into the same origin error. Let's go over some other common errors, keeping this in mind that it will apply to all import files, but I will be demonstrating for now using the person import. So #2 is missing or incomplete configuration section. #3 is misplaced hyphens in column headers. And #4, incorrectly identified policy class. All right, so I am going to start by going back to our import data application, and I am going to upload a file for my new Hobbit class sheet. All right, so I'm going to hit add file. Okay, and I'm going to go load my Hobbit class sheet. I'll hit open. Whoops, and right in the top right-hand corner, I see missing or incomplete configuration section. Most often, this is due to a client opening in Excel and metadata being placed on the file. As we went over, you can fix that by opening in a text editor or using a program other than Excel to edit. This file I edited in Google Sheets, so this is a strange error. Let's check the file and see what occurred. So I'm going to go to my file in Google Sheets. Now, because it alerted me that there's an issue in the begin configuration section, I want to start out by reviewing all of the fields in the begin configuration section. Right away, I can see the error very quickly. It appears that in the very first line, the program that I was editing on added an extra character. It added OF character to the begin configuration line. So I'm simply going to delete that character and resave and then upload it again, which should hopefully fix that error. Now, I have pre-saved this change to save us all time during the demonstration. So I'm just going to load my second file that has that change on it. Hit add file. Great, not a good thing. We have another error, which is missing required columns, last name. Let's go back to the file and see what could be causing this. Because it cued me that there's an issue with last name, I want to check that column header first. And right away, I can see that in the begin data section, last name is not in all caps. Additionally, it doesn't have a hyphen, which is what our documentation page specifies. Fortunately, it's correct in the import columns row. So I'm just going to copy this and paste it to fix that issue. All right, again, I would normally save this properly to reload, but I have had a pre-save change ready to go. So let's see the file now with that change. I'll hit add file. Great. And now the file loads. This is great news. I see that we have 0 parse errors. That's fantastic. Let's now hit validate. Oh no, I see 6 validation errors. All of these errors say failed to find a policy class matching other or patron class during creation. Okay. So I'm going to go back to my file and I'm going to look at the policy class. I see that the policy class values other are not in all caps. If uncertain how to format your policy class, you can always refer to the patron class section of your global settings. So if I go to WebCheckout and go admin global settings, and then select under the policy classes tab, I can see all of my current policy classes, as well as this is where they are customizable. As noted earlier, you will need the root admin capability to access this page. If I click on other, I notice that its unique ID is in all caps. The unique ID is the importable value, so this is what needs to be on my file. I'm going to copy it, paste it, and drag it down. Now I'm ready to upload the file. Right? So I'll reset this table, hit add file. I see 0 parse errors, that's great. I'll validate, 0 validation errors. And now I'm going to hit promote. All right, great. So now that we've loaded these new students into the system, I'm going to look back in WebCheckout to verify they're there. So I'm going to go people, find people. And now I'm going to use a preset custom search I created by clicking this drop-down menu and go to my union class search. I've created a custom property to organize my students by, and I see that by my Hobbit union, all of the patrons that were on my file have now been correctly uploaded. Great. All right. Now, I want to note some other common errors that frequently occur on the resource and resource type import sheets. Many of you are likely familiar with the basics of those sheets, and we won't be reviewing them today as many of the values in the configuration section are similar to our person imports. However, I want to take the time to review these common errors as the principles apply to all import files. Some of the common questions you can ask yourself if there are common errors is a column header associated with a module that I don't have? Particularly on your resource type file, requires certification is only for clients who have that module. Number 2, is the column header on the correct file? A good example of this is in our November 2021 version, unserialized is now a resource type value and not a resource value. Number 3, are you referencing correct unique identifiers? For example, frequently the parent column on a resource type file doesn't reference an exact unique identifier of its parent, and this is critical. Let's go in and view some of these errors in action and how to troubleshoot them. All right, so I'm going to reset my import table, and I'm going to start by uploading my new resource type file for my new Dell Inspiron laptops. So I'll hit add file. I'm going to add my resource type file. Right away, the file doesn't even load. I see require certification are not importable columns. Let's go to the file. So because the error said require certification is not importable, I'm going to want to go right to that column header and see what the error might be. I notice right away that the issue is there's an extra period on this column header. But I also want to showcase this value because, as mentioned, if you don't have the certification module, you cannot use this import column. If you don't have it, you'll need to use requires authorization and via groups grant access to restricted gear, or reach out to an account manager and see if requires certification would be right for your institution in order to add this module. Therefore, I'm going to delete this column. Great. All right, so I've deleted what I believe is the offending column, and I've saved the file. And just like before, I'm now going to upload a file with this pre-saved change. So let's go back to our import data app, and I'm going to add the file with that change. Okay, great. And now the file loads and has 0 parse errors. That's great news. We're now going to hit validate. All right, I see I now have 3 validation errors. When I click on the 3 and open the report, it says fail to find an organization matching WebCo Productions for organization during creation. All right, this is a fairly common error I see, and we're going to dive into why by first going back to WebCheckout, and we're going to look at what the name is of our organization. So I'm going to go admin organization, and I see it as WebCo Productions-org. I'm going to copy this value. Because resource types are an organization-wide value, this is why we've gone to the org first. And I'm copying this because when building out import files, I recommend making copy paste your friend to ensure you get the spelling exact. So I'm going to go back to my sheet and I'm going to paste under the organization column header. And right away, I can see that the value is different than what I had. The correct organization is WebCo Productions-org, whereas WebCo Productions is what I had placed. I'm now going to drag this down. All right, so I have pre-saved this change just like before. So I'm now going to load the sheet with this corrected change. I'll reset my table, hit add file. All right, we'll validate. So now I have one less validation error, and I see that it failed to find resource type matching Dell Inspiron laptop for parent during creation. All right, let's go to our resource type sheet and look at the parent column, since that was what the error noted. I see right away that under the parent column, these Dell Inspiron laptops 14 and 15 are referencing the friendly name of their parent, which is just Dell Inspiron laptop. However, this friendly name could be associated with a different resource type, but isn't associated with this one because it's not referencing the unique ID. This unique ID is there to ensure that this is an exact match. So I need to copy the resource type ID and paste it in the parent column and drag it down. Great. All right, now that I've made that change, whoops, I went too far. I'm now going to upload this file again with this corrected change. Go back and reset the table. I'll hit add file. I'll open. Now I'll hit validate. Great, no validation errors. And finally, I'll hit promote. Fantastic, the file loaded without any promotion errors. I'm now ready to load its corresponding resource sheet. So we just loaded the resource type, which is the category of equipment. Now we're going to load the physical items that sit below that category. All right, I'll hit add file. And I'm going to load my resource sheet. Right away, I see missing or incomplete configuration section. Again, because I'm using Sheets, this is a strange error. I didn't load it in Excel. So let's go to our file and see what could be happening. All right. Right away, I look at my begin configuration section and the opening lines look correct. But I do notice in my columns unserialized listed, as well as I see I don't have my import columns listed correctly. So what I need to do is move my non-import columns down, and I'm going to grab my import columns and ensure that that's correctly listed. Now, unserialized, I see here is a problem because as of our November 2021 version, this value should now be on the resource type import file, not on the resource file. So I'm going to want to remove this, especially because none of these are unserialized anyway. But if they were, I can add that value at the resource type level. Okay, I've saved that change and I'm now going to upload it into WebCheckout. All right. Great, so now the file loaded, I have 0 parse errors. Let's hit validate. And now I see we have 6 validation errors. I'll click on the 6 to open the report. And it says failed to find resource type matching Dell Inspiron Laptop 14 for resource type during creation. Let's go back to our sheet. And I'm going under the resource type column because that's what was part of that error report. And I see that these resource types don't include that acronym that I had on my resource type ID. Let's go to our resource type file to verify. And I see that, yes, these resource type IDs end in -WCO. So that unique acronym I forgot to include. Again, copy paste is my friend. So I'm going to copy this, paste it over. Great. And I'm going to do the same, just making sure to copy paste my laptop 15 to ensure it's referencing the correct resource type. Great. All right, I'll go back to my import data application and hit add file. Right. Load the file, 0 parse errors, I'll validate. 0 validation errors, and now I'm ready to hit promote. Great, 0 promotion errors, so the file correctly loaded. Let's go back into WebCheckout and see that we can find these new resources. So I'm going to go resources, and in the quick snap under find resource types, I'm just going to start typing in Dell Inspiron. Great. And I'm going to that parent type we created. It looks good, and it has my 2 subtypes below it. I'll just click on one. So under my Dell Inspiron Laptop 14, I see that it has the 3 resources we correctly imported. Great. All right. Now, some key takeaways today. Whenever you're troubleshooting a file, make sure that whatever the error report says, that you start by checking that value on the file. And of course, as you can see in this final slide of my presentation, our documentation page. As always, when you're getting errors on your file, check to make sure that that value is accurate in our documentation. Now, we have about 6 minutes left of this presentation, and I do see there are some questions in chat. So what are some of those questions?
Hi, AJ. So we did get a couple of questions from the group. Actually, before I start, great job. That was a really great session. So let's go through these questions together. So the first question we have is, if I have an existing patron. So if somebody's importing existing patrons and I'm
Yep.
importing a new file with them included to update their info, such as patron class. If I delete unused columns, such as phone or address, will it now delete that info in their record after they import that data?
Gotcha. That's a great question. So WebCheckout is additive, meaning it's only going to, so our import data app is additive, meaning it's only going to add to the data. However, if you do include the action deactivate excluded, I do just want to note that because that will inactivate records that aren't on the file. Now, if you don't include column headers, it's not going to make those changes unless, say, you did include a column header. So for example, if you include phone as a column header and it's blank, it's then going to make blank all of those phone numbers below it.
Perfect. The other question we have is about backing up the database. So somebody was asking, when did it move to the import data app? So the backup database is only available on that import data app on version July 2021 or later. Would you mind showing everyone that where that backup database button is? Just because we did get that question.
Absolutely. So if you're past July 2021, the backup database button is this fourth icon from the right. You'll click there to back up the database. If you're on a version prior to July 2021, you will need root admin capability. You can go admin, global settings, and then in the global settings detail screen on the left-hand pane, there's this backup database button in blue.
Perfect, thank you. And then it looks like the final question, or we might have just gotten another question, but the third question we received was, is there a way to mass import my resource data using that import data screen in the admin tab? So it looks like someone who has been running an older version of WebCheckout using the old import data screen is running into a lot of issues with local and external records, but they don't see a way to update origin on the old import spreadsheet since there's no begin config section.
That's a great question. And I do invite anyone on the WebCheckout team to correct any part of this if I misspeak at all, just because this is an older version. But in our previous versions of WebCheckout, when you didn't have this import data application, you can upload a record that's say set to local or upload a record that's set to external, but you cannot change the origin in mass. You have to do that manually at each individual record. So if you are running into that problem, my number one recommendation to you, reach out to our support team to get an upgrade scheduled. And I'm actually going to just pop our email into chat just as a reminder. That is support@webcheckout.net.
You got it. And it looks like we got one more question in chat. So this question says, if we wanted to update a set of resources already created in WebCheckout using advanced import, and we wanted to update both the resource ID or barcode, is there another lookup field we could use so that both the resource ID and barcode could be updated at the same time?
Yeah, that's a great question. So if you're familiar with custom properties, you can add a custom unique identifier for many of the values in WebCheckout. So for example, you could add in custom property a new unique ID. I will note that you're going to need to add that to everything first. So as step one, you'll need to make sure that there's some new unique identifier that all the data can pivot off of. And then after that's in the system, your second import, you can have that new custom unique ID be in the lookup column, and then you can update barcode as well as your resource, your label ID upload at the same time. All right.
Yeah, and for those of you who are on the call yesterday, you may have remembered where we showed you where you could create those custom properties. So if AJ, if you would click on that custom properties tab really quick.
Absolutely.
So just like we showed you yesterday, to add custom properties to person ID, you can add them to resource records too, or resource types if you wanted to, by adding a new custom property. And we also have a webinar from last year where we show you how to import data into those custom properties and change unique identifiers. So we do have additional training videos to support you with assisting you with imports, lots of import training. All right, well, we are right at 12:01 p.m. So great job, AJ. Thank you so much for a super great session. You did a wonderful job. That was super informative. So now we're going to switch gears. We are and I would like to introduce you to Nicole Mildner from our technical support team. So she will be discussing how you can partner with WebCheckout to support to really help us to provide you with better solutions faster. So without further ado, I would like to introduce you to Nicole. And Nicole, take it away. Feel free to share your screen.
Awesome. Thank you, Brittany. So let me go ahead and share. Can everybody see my screen? All right, I think I'm sharing it correctly.
We can see it. It looks great.
Okay, thanks. All right, so today I will be showing you how to get better support solutions faster. So everybody, welcome. Hello, my name is Nicole Mildner. So I just want to give you all a little bit of an about me. I'm a technical support specialist here at WebCheckout. I've been here for a year now, so it's been fun to work with the team and be a part of the team and work with all of you. I currently have a bachelor's of science in computer science, which I received from Roosevelt University. I graduated in May of 2021. Formerly, I worked there as a full-time student in the help desk as a help desk agent. So that helped with my background, definitely in my job search and being hired here at WebCheckout. And currently, I also go out to encourage young women to go into STEM. So I also go to my high school. I will do talks there with my previous computer science teacher, and we just try to encourage young women to join STEM and get them into that field. So today we'll be going over support tickets and how to get a better solution faster. WebCheckout strives to provide a stable application that will take your inventories to the next level, but we also strive to provide the best application support so your issues are resolved as quickly as possible. So today I'm just here to review how to best write a support ticket in order to get a speedy solution. So we'll be going over subject and body of a ticket, because in the subject you would want to have a concise summary of the problem, and then also in the body you would want to have details of the problem in order for us to investigate or reproduce that issue. So what is the best way to get the quickest and effective response to your support ticket? So let's go ahead and review. So first we're going to go over writing the subject line. This is the most important part of the ticket because it does help us to identify right away what the issue may be. For a subject line, it should be concise and to the point. So what should it look like? It should ask a question or state the problem. So an example could be, help, operators are unable to log into the main application. So right there, we know that you need assistance. You're telling us straight away what the problem is, what is going on. A question could be, how do I create a new reservation? Or another problem you may be running into, you can say, I can't remove a resource from an allocation. So these examples help us to identify the issue immediately, as it provides a short description of the problem. So what could be considered a quote unquote bad subject line? An example could easily be just, web checkout is down. This subject is very broad because it can have many different meanings for us. So it could mean so many different things. Like for instance, where you logged into WebCheckout and then you got kicked out and now you can't log back in, or is the application no longer responding? That could be another way that WebCheckout is down, or you can easily not be able to get past SSO, but the application is still running. So that's a very broad subject line for us to receive. And then that would go into us going back and forth and seeing what the issue is and how we can best resolve it. So even though in the example of saying web checkout is down, even though that is short, which is what we want, you're not clear or concise. So receiving a ticket with the subject line will allow us to pinpoint the issue or the cause as quickly. And that also goes into the description, because that isn't giving us any good information as well, that will lead to a longer time of going back and forth and trying to resolve your issue. So since I just mentioned the description, what is needed to write a good description? So some things to include are, what are you experiencing? So are you experiencing an issue with allocations, resource types, groups? Are you having trouble logging in? What is happening? Also letting us know where this is happening at. So if your issue is happening in a specific checkout center, that is great information to provide us with so we can pinpoint the problem faster. Additionally, if you know who this is happening to, is this only happening to operators? Is this happening to users falling under a certain patron class? And then other things that you can include, which is always helpful, is just a timeline of when you started to experience this issue. Did it just pop up that day, or had it been happening for some time, but it just wasn't as big of an issue as you thought, so now it's becoming detrimental. Another thing that does help us a lot is getting screenshots or screen recordings of the entire browser window, so that way we can see what you're seeing, and it'll help us to recreate the issue and resolve your issue. And with that would be your workflow, so that way we can try to recreate it. Along with that, knowing what your desired outcome is. So knowing, hey, I want to offline this resource. So if you're having trouble with resources, we know you want to have it offline, and that way we can help you get there. So along with like allocations, they need to be canceled, things like that. So overall, with these, you can apply these to all support tickets and emails. So even within your own IT department, you can use this. You can give a clear and concise subject, a description to include who, what, where, when, and why. It can also help with user stories. So as an equipment manager, I want this so that I can support the workflows of students to complete this in Patron Portal. So before this, I wanted to also give you all a behind the scenes look of what we see day to day. So I went ahead and created a bit of a dashboard. So for us, we do use Jira, and in Jira, we have dashboards. So for everyone in Web Checkout, in this technical support team, we all have our own organization of this dashboard. So for me, this isn't my real dashboard. There's definitely a lot more tickets and projects that I'm working on, but for this presentation, I just wanted to create a mock one for you. So over here would be what we see when you all submit tickets. So it would just be something called new tickets. And when those come in, they will come here, and then the technical support team, we will take these tickets and respond and investigate to help you get your issues resolved. So over here, we have a ticket that says web checkout is down. Well, over here, we have a ticket that says help, operators are unable to log into the main application. So just as a question, what would you all think would be the better subject line? Would it be the first one or the second one? If you all just want to pop into chat and let us know. So I see Marilyn said number 2. Ryan also agrees that number 2 would be a better subject line. So yes, you would be correct in number 2, being the better subject line, because you're correct, Marilyn. The first one is too vague. So if we were to receive a subject like that, we would click into the ticket, and this would just be our view. We have everyone in Web Checkout. We have some client files that we can see what version you're on, as well as your label, and if you are a hosted or non-hosted client. But then once we click into this ticket, we see all of this here, just the details, but then we also get your description. So the description here is Web Checkout is not working, please help. So with the subject line being Web Checkout is down, and then the description also being vague, this will then bring us into a little bit of back and forth. So a typical response for this, we would ask just a few questions, and that would be, were you logged into Web Checkout? And now you got kicked out, is it no longer responding? So this is where we get a little bit of the back and forth and start to get a little bit more information. Versus in this ticket over here, we have help, operators are unable to log into the main application. So right here, we already know this seems to be only happening to operators. And then once we get into the ticket, we can see in the description, there is more information. So when our operators travel to example.webcheckout.net, and enter their credentials, they receive the error incorrect username or password. We have tried resetting their passwords, but that does not fix the issue. Can you look into this? So this is a really great description, because you're telling us what the operators are doing, what they are seeing in the error. Even though there's not a screenshot, that's okay. You're telling us exactly what it's telling you. And you've also told us some steps that you've tried to remediate it. So you've tried to reset their passwords, but that's not fixing the issue. So already right there, we have a lot of information, and we can go ahead and investigate it. In this case, it could easily be something as simple as some of these operators are inactive. And so we can go ahead, investigate, and see what is going on. So something here is like, we may respond and say, we're looking into this now. We'll do a bit of investigating. If it feels like we need more information, we will respond with a couple clarifying questions to help us further assess. So in this case, we may come back with saying, is this user also experiencing the issue? And that way we can compare to see if it's an active user or something else going on. So we just wanted to give you a bit of the behind the scenes look of like what we are seeing when you submit a ticket. So this would be basically a layout. So right here, like I said, the new tickets would come in, and then right here, we would be waiting for your response. So just to get back to the presentation, go here to the slideshow. So as always, we're always here to help you. We want to help you as quickly and as thoroughly as we can by providing accurate and timely information. It will allow us to do so that way we can get your application up and running or resolving your issue. So as always, reach out to support@webcheckout.net for this. And also, if you have an emergency, please email emergency@webcheckout.net, and that way we can assist as quickly as possible in those situations.
Thank you so much, Nicole. That was such a great presentation. Oh, I'll share my screen.
Let me go ahead.
You got it. Thank you so much for sharing your screen. Thank you again, Nicole. That was a really great presentation. Thank you so much. So I hope you folks learned a lot during our session today.
Brittany, sorry to interrupt. There actually was one question, and Nicole, if you don't mind going back to your screen.
Oh, of
Marilyn
course.
brought up, and that was a great presentation. Thanks for actually even showing our ticketing queue. And Marilyn was interested. I wasn't doing my job moderating these questions in our. Sorry, Brittany. She asked, when the customer responds, does the ticket go back to the left side?
Oh, okay. So yeah, for us, it's very different for everyone. It just depends on their organization of this. So for instance, like right now, this is a new ticket. Let's say we haven't responded yet, so it's waiting for support. So that's how we know. Once I respond, it would change to waiting for customer. And then depending on how our clients do that, it would be over here, and then it would be waiting for customer. Some of you may also have gotten our automatic messages before saying, hey, like you have not responded, would you like us to close this ticket? So that's why those happen. And sometimes we're probably saying we'll set it to pending, so that way if we're both working on something for that ticket and it's just a time limit. We'll set that to pending, but yeah, so that's how for us for Jira it works. We'll usually have this filter of new tickets and then waiting for customer.
Okay, once the customer responds, then
Mhm.
where does the ticket go?
Once the customer responds, it'll go back to waiting for support. So for me in my personal queue, I will have it to say that it's assigned to me. The ticket is assigned to me, but it's waiting for support. So it's waiting for my response. And then up here, we will get a notification letting us know like there is something or a ticket that someone responded to or
But
had
that
added
doesn't
a note.
That doesn't show up on your dashboard then?
Yeah, it shows up on our dashboard. As long as we have the dashboard right here open, it'll refresh depending. I think it's like refreshes like every 5 to 15 minutes, depending how it's set. But we'll always receive these little notifications, as well as depending on technical support representative, you can have it will add it to our chats as well.
So does it go back onto the new ticket side or in an entirely different column?
For me personally, I have an entirely third column. So over here would be new tickets. So those are completely unassigned. And then usually I'll have another filter here that'll just say waiting for support. So that way I know that that ticket is assigned to me and I'm waiting, and whoever had responded that they're waiting for my response.
Okay.
So it'd usually be something right here. I'll be able to respond and then I know that I responded to it because then it'll now go to waiting for customer. And now I know I'm waiting for it on the customer side.
Okay, that's the piece I was waiting on, is the waiting for support side,
Yes.
that third spot.
Perfect. And it looks like we got one more question within our chat. So can a customer log in to check their ticket or feature request status?
So yeah, so if you're doing it through emails, you will get an email letting you know if we have responded, as well as we also have the portal. So we go here, let's see if I set this to a webco support request, just refresh my page. You should be able to, there's also this portal we have, and you'll be able to see the status is waiting for customer. My notifications are on and the request type, so you can check it there. As far as feature request, I'm not sure if you can see the status on there. I think since we work with our development team, we would reach out to you once we have more information on that.
Perfect answer. And we have another question from chat that says, how can we create our own tickets for support? So you can create a ticket by emailing support@webcheckout.net, or you can use that URL that Jeannie just provided, and you can submit tickets through that customer support portal as well.
Would you go back to the customer support portal, please?
Of course. So this is what the customer support portal looks like, and you can see the details. So you can see the description and then all of the activity. So if there's more responses, this will definitely load right here under activity. And then also if you needed to include somebody else, it could be shared.
Okay, and then, so that's the proper URL up in the line there?
I believe Jeannie just put into chat the link to the support portal, but yes.
There we go.
You got it. And if you folks receive emails from your tickets, if you click on the hyperlinks, that should take you to the login for this customer support portal as well, to log in and view that ticket. All right.
Excellent.
Are there any other questions that I missed in chat? It doesn't look like I've missed any, but call them out if I have, please. All right. Well, that was a really great session, Nicole. Nice job. So I hope you all learned a tip or two to help us provide you with a little bit quicker support and to help us better understand all of the information about the issue at hand. So as a quick reminder, please never hesitate to submit a support ticket to us. If you're running into an issue, we always want to be able to assist you, even if you're unable to articulate it. The key takeaway is that the more specific you can be, the quicker we can actually help you. So even if you can only provide a screenshot or a video grab, right, we'll ask some follow-up questions, but the more specific you can be, the quicker we can be. All right. So this leads us to talk about our next session. So we will be taking a lunch break until 1:30 p.m. Central Time. We will come back at 1:30 p.m. Central. That's 2:30 p.m. Eastern, 11:30 a.m. Pacific Time. And this afternoon, we will be leading a group activity using those breakout rooms that we introduced you all to yesterday. And we will be ending with some closing remarks from Eric Dodson. All right. Are there any other questions or concerns for our last final 10 minutes? All right. If there's no questions, thank you all so much for joining us this morning. We do really appreciate it. And I hope to see you back at 1:30.